Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. What we're going to be chatting about today is success strategies for meeting academic potential. And so that will take on many different forms, but we'll be focusing mostly on stress management, time management, and then what we do at the Kortschak Center, in case people don't know. But to do a quick introduction of myself, I'm Dr. Juliana Calhoun. I serve as the Assistant Director and Staff Psychologist at the Kortschak Center for Learning and Creativity. So it means I am our lead supervisor on our training programs, such as our postdoctoral training program, as well as the lead supervisor of our academic coaches as well. So we'll get more into what we do with Kortschak later. But first, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Hi, I'm Nicolette, and I'm a learning specialist at the Kortschak Center.
Oh, great. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So I mentioned these are kind of the things that we'll cover today. One thing to note, whether you're on camera, off camera, you want to unmute if you want to add anything, raise your hand, use the chat, whatever works for you will work for us. So however you want to participate today, or if you just want to sit back, relax and listen, totally fine as well. But yeah, let's get started. So next slide. The one thing I will just mention is we are not the Office of Student Accessibility. We are not OSAS, but we do work very closely with them. So anything relating to accommodations or anything related to classroom accommodations, workplace accommodations, such as time and a half, reading, that goes through OSAS, does not go through our department. However, we are aware, of course, of what those would look like in a classroom, and we do support students and helping them get registered and things like that. So just to make that note there. But to start off, as we're going to start with stress management, what are some stressors that people are currently experiencing? If anyone would like to share in the chat or just come off mute and share what's going on for folks.
Time. I would, just say conflicting priorities and effective time management is one thing that's really hitting hard.
Love a broad category. Time management. How am I going to fit in all I need to do in this amount of time that I have to do it? Keeping track of what you have to do, what needs to get done, what can be pushed till later. We'll definitely spend some time chatting about those things as well. Any other stressors that folks are experiencing?
I think students are balancing their academics as well as their personal lives. Their students, they want to get high grades, right? And then they're also working a lot, they may be providing for family or what have you. So just juggling so much at once, and trying to be successful in all areas.
Yeah, definitely. There's within our USC student population, they're very high achievers. They're working, they're doing internships, they're taking 5 classes, they're in this club, they're doing all of these things. Not to mention just being a partner, a friend, a daughter, a son, a parent, a caregiver. There's all these other kind of life things that they have to deal with. And so just balancing all of that is, of course, overwhelming. This week is very overwhelming. We're really in the midpoint of the semester. Everyone is ready for spring break next week. Final projects are due, tests, quizzes. People are just very busy. So that can all kind of factor into the stressors as well. Anyone else like to share anything else? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So before we talk through how stress impacts performance, anyone want to take a guess? How does stress impact performance? As you can imagine, stress definitely impacts performance. It's important to have deadlines. It's important to be organized. But too much stress, if you have too many things going on, you're feeling too overwhelmed, can definitely impact your performance. And so what we're going to spend the rest of the presentation talking about is kind of strategies and things to do to make sure that you can be organized. For a lot of people, time management, organization, knowing what they need to do when they have time to do it can lower stress levels, as well as just activities to do. I think it's so important, and something that a lot of students are actively working on is just how to incorporate stress management strategies, how to incorporate self-care strategies into daily living. A lot of people think like it's not stress management unless I'm taking an hour walk. It's not self-care unless I can go to the gym for 2 hours. It's not self-care unless I can do these things. And what we'll talk about today, and also in a little bit, is just that it doesn't matter on the time. You know, even taking a 30-second break and taking 3 deep breaths and closing your eyes may be enough to kind of lessen some of the stress and also help center you as well. So next slide. Before we get into actual tips of stress management, one thing we like to talk about is just this idea of multiple components or multiple parts of wellness. For so many people, they think that wellness is just the environment or just the physical or just the social. But it's important to note there's lots of different areas for wellness that can be worked on. So you can work on emotional wellness. So maybe that means making sure you're going to therapy. Maybe that means, you know, having a friend date or going out with your partner where all you're going to do is just hang out. That could all be good for emotional. Spiritual, maybe going to church, Bible study, going to programming at the Office of Religious Life may fall into that. Some people find journaling really spiritual. Some people I know have said they do spiritual wellness by going surfing. That's like their thing. All counts. Intellectual, so maybe exploring hobbies, things like that. Physical, any sort of activity, whether it's walking, stretching, yoga, running, more strenuous activity, all of that counts. And again, it's not saying it only counts if it's a certain amount of time. Any amount of time counts. Any type of activity will count. Environmental could be getting outside, but it could also be just setting up your environment. So maybe you're going to put candles when you're working, light a candle, use certain scents, all of these things that can be really helpful. Financial, maybe doing budgeting, maybe, you know, it is that time of year. Maybe your stress management will be just doing your taxes this weekend, getting those out of the way, things like that. Occupational, anything related to job, professional development could actually fall under here. But anything related to learning more, maybe attending a session like this, all of that would count for occupational. And then also social, hanging out with people, getting to know people. Maybe, you know, you take a quick 5-minute break in the office and just go chat with the front desk worker or go chat with another coworker, see how they're doing. You know, maybe hanging out in the break room and just seeing who comes in the, you know, next few minutes, just seeing what's going on. And so again, when we're talking about stress management, it can be one of these categories, all of these categories, 2 or 3 of them. And so it's something that we like to work on with students, is just really expanding their concept of what wellness is, what stress management can include, and then how to fit that into your schedule. So next slide. Just a couple things that we always like to suggest to students and suggest to folks is, one, focusing on your personal health. So finding movement breaks. So for example, I have a standing desk. I'm actually standing up right now because I've been sitting most of the day. And so that's a movement break for me, is standing up and working versus sitting. Planning out your schedule to make sure that you're getting enough sleep, that, you know, 7 to 9 hours of sleep is what most people need. You may need a little less, you may need a little more, but making sure that you're setting up your schedule to be able to allow for the restorative sleep. And then also just self-care, whether that's all the stuff we just talked about, or maybe treating yourself to something or using something could also fit under that. Another thing we like to suggest is mindful moments. And so taking a moment we have tons of coloring books in our office and coloring sheets. So, you know, spending 5 minutes doing that. There's lots of online resources that you can also do for coloring. Spending time outside in nature, taking stock of surroundings, things like that. And then, of course, building connection with others. So calling, texting, video chatting with a friend or loved one. And then if you're realizing that you want professional help, whether that's going to the doctor, going to a therapist, seeking that for additional care and support. Next slide. And through this whole process of talking through about how to incorporate stress management and incorporate self-care into your day, it's so important to focus on fostering self-compassion. And so looking through and understanding that, you know, if you're making these big changes of incorporating these things into your life, it may actually take a few weeks. So I think what a lot of people think of there's this idea in pop culture that habits take about 21 days. The research actually shows that habits take about 99 days, which is about 3 months. And so that gives you time to kind of ebb and flow through cycles of life, through sickness, through other things. And so through this whole process, it's so important as you're setting goals and things like that to just have compassion for yourself. Talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend or a loved one, and not being like, oh, I said I was going to go for a walk today and I didn't. And so like, that's so bad. Let's change that self-talk, that self-compassion. I was going to go for a walk today and then it started raining in my time I could go. So I didn't go for a walk, and that's okay. Instead, I walked up and down the stairs 5 times. I went and did meditation instead. So again, not only having compassion towards these new changes you're trying to make, but also giving yourself grace and flexibility that this is going to take time to be able to do that. Okay, next slide.
All right, so we talk about stress management first, just because we realize that now moving into time management, you can have the best time management ever, but if you're not taking care of yourself, right, not getting enough sleep, feeling stressed out all the time, then you still won't be able to, be the most productive person. And so really just make sure that you incorporate whatever you need to in order to take care of yourself. Yes. We are students, but then we're also human beings first. So now transitioning into time management, can anybody maybe want to take a guess what 168 might be referring to in the context of time management or time in general?
It's half a year, right?
I guess I'm not sure, but within the context of what I was thinking about, we're thinking about 168 hours in a week. And so we have, but thank you so much for sharing. The reason why we bring this up is just to kind of frame it as everybody has the same amount of time. And so really it's what we do with that. And I know there's like that quotation of like everybody has the same amount of time as like Beyonce, right? Well, we might not be at that level quite yet, but so there is a lot of things that we can do to navigate our time at USC and the competing balances and things like that. So the first resource that we always recommend to students is the semester calendar. This is available on the Kortschak Center website, as well as we do have printed versions if you come into our office. And the semester calendar is great. This one is from a previous semester, but what you can do with the semester calendar is block out when you have things due by class. And so this one is a digital calendar. And so you can see that it's color coded. And what you can do at the beginning of the semester is just go through all of your syllabi and put those on the calendar. And that helps you to kind of just see a bird's eye view of, what's coming up, not only for the week ahead, but maybe several weeks ahead. We also encourage students to put in, personal events that are going to take up time. So for example, if you have family coming into town, that's really good to put on your calendar because, hey, I might have less time than usual to devote to my studies, or, it's my birthday. You probably don't want to be necessarily doing work or have to do work on your birthday. And so it's good to have those on the calendar as well. Because then you might start noticing, hey, like this week I have a lot of stuff, but in the couple of weeks prior, I don't have as much. And so you can start to kind of plan and space out things rather than, getting to the time when things are due and realizing, oh my gosh, I have a million things due and not nearly enough time to do it. And so just being able to plan out your calendar and your semester a little bit more can also help with that stress management that we talked about. The next resource we have is a weekly calendar. So from a semester calendar, the bird's eye view, if you zoom in a little bit more, we have a weekly calendar. And this is useful to create daily and weekly routines. Especially in college, you don't have someone telling you where you need to be at what specific time other than really like your class obligations. And so you do have a lot more unstructured time, but a weekly calendar is great to structure your time so that it's most productive and you are able to do everything that you want to do. So yes, of course, that includes homework and things like that, but it could also include going to the gym or having dinner with friends or incorporating some of those spiritual practices. So having a weekly calendar can help you set up those daily and weekly routines. And that way you're also spending less time and less stress being like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Wondering if you have enough time to do everything that you want to do. If you set up a calendar and you just have it as a routine, you will be able to definitely prioritize and fit in what is most important. Even further, we have as a resource on our website an action plan where we're able to break down larger tasks into manageable pieces. So an action plan is great when you do have several things due maybe within like 1 to 2 weeks. A lot of times we'll do this around midterms or finals with students. You can see here on the calendar that we have it broken up by class. And then instead of, just having as you would on your semester calendar, the due date, an action plan is really nice because you're able to break down all the tasks that you need to do leading up to that final due date, whether it's your test or, a paper or a project. And so this makes it a lot easier to manage and less stressful because you have a smaller task to do than say the overall larger one. And then this also could factor into, academic integrity week when just thinking about having that extra time to maybe go to the writing center and make edits or making sure that you do have enough time to study for a test and you're not doing everything last minute. And so when you are able to space things out and break it down, it kind of relieves that pressure or even inadvertent issues that might come up with academic integrity when you are rushing or pushing everything to the last minute. Within all of our kind of time management resources, this one is really great in regards to just determining the importance and urgency of tasks. So we have 4 quadrants. Important and urgent, important, not urgent, not important, urgent, and not important, not urgent. So important activities are just ones that have more impact. So for example, if you have a big paper due, that's definitely more important than say going to the gym. Not that going to the gym isn't as important, but it's definitely something that could be moved around. And so we would put that in maybe I misspoke, but that would be in like important, not urgent. An example I also give to students is a discussion post. So a discussion post, it is good that you do it, but grade wise and also just impact overall in regards to a course, you may not want to spend 2 hours doing one discussion post if you have a huge test due the next day. And so that might be something that you spend less time doing. And that could go into quadrant 3. So it is something you need to do because it is coming up, but you're just not going to spend as much time on it. Another example would just be emails. You should respond, but also not take up as much time into your schedule. And then not important, not urgent is generally what students know are not important, not urgent, right? Just those time wasting activities that you might like to do, but again, are not a priority. Just some helpful tips when estimating your time. Number 1 tip is be reasonable about your expectations. At USC, students are very involved and engaged in class and also outside of class and have competing responsibilities. And so it's always just important to be reasonable about what you can do. We all have the same hours in a week, in a day. We all need to eat and sleep and do things like that. And then also sometimes things just might take longer than we expect, right? We hit some traffic. And so even just giving yourself more time to get from place to place, or maybe, you thought that you would be able to finish a project in X amount of time, but you actually need double that time. So it's always good to give yourself margin. Also, for motivation wise, it's important to give yourself incentives for achieving smaller goals. So it could be something as simple as, okay, when I complete this task, then I can take a break and go outside and walk around for a little bit. It could also be just having like a small treat. I really love coffee. So for me, sometimes to even, get started, I'm like, okay, if I have my coffee, then I will be ready to go. And so that is also a motivator. But really, it could be individual to you, and it doesn't even need to be something that you spend money on. And then the last thing is just plan for when you work best. So when are your energy levels the highest? That's when you want to do the most important things, or the things that will take up the most mental energy. So for example, for me, I know that my mental energy and just energy in general is highest in the morning. And so I'll make sure that I do the most important things then. But I do know some people who, prefer working in the evening when it's maybe a little bit more quiet. So you want to think about, when do you work best, and then plan your schedule around that, and also even plan your class time around that. If you know you're not a morning person, then, try not to get those like 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. classes. A huge thing that students come in with is procrastination. And again, this can also tie in with the academic integrity, because sometimes, we may not intentionally try to, I guess, for example, like citations, we might not intentionally miscite something, but it would happen or could happen easily if we're just pushing things to the last minute and aren't looking over our paper or aren't having other eyes look at it. And so a really great way to combat procrastination and get started earlier is something called the Pomodoro technique. So what it is you just choose a task, and then you set a timer to 25 minutes. And then when that timer goes off, you reward yourself with a 5-minute break. And so you can do this repeatedly. So after that 5-minute break, you just set another timer for 25 minutes, you work on the task, and then take another break. After 4 Pomodoros, you can take a longer break, so like a 15-minute break or so. And this is really great just because sometimes the tasks that we have may seem so overwhelming, or we're like, I really don't want to do this. But if hey, no matter what, I have a break at the end of that 25 minutes, that can really motivate us to even get started and also continue. This is flexible. So some students say, 25 minutes is too short. Once I'm invested in my work, it would actually take longer for me to stop and then start back up. And so we always just suggest to students, if you're working longer, then just take a longer break at that stop time. Same thing if 25 minutes just seems too long, or you're like, I'm getting distracted really easily, you can set a timer for a shorter amount of time. Again, this is flexible, and then just give yourself a shorter break. And worst comes to worst, you can even just start with 5 minutes to get started to get yourself going. So we are a part of the Kortschak Center, and this is just kind of a brief outline into what we do and our resources. But if you are ever, struggling with time management, organization, self-care, or even if you don't know what resource you should be going to, we're here to help. If we can't do it, we'll make sure we refer you to a place on USC who can help with whatever you're looking for. We're located in Student Union 311, so we're on the 3rd floor. But we also are going to be talking about more resources available both online and in person of things that we offer to students. So we have drop-in hours that are online and in person. The in-person drop-in hours are located in Student Union 311, and all of those hours are available on our website. We also, or I should say, drop-in hours, you meet with an academic coach one-on-one to talk about your individual needs. Workshops are a little bit different. They're a little bit more like this session today, where we have a specific topic and then we're just more sharing multiple resources. So workshops are less individualized and very topic focused. We offer workshops on time management, note-taking, reading, as well as just preparing for finals in general and what that looks like. Within our physical space, we have a quiet study room, no reservations needed. The library can get really busy, but our quiet study room is a great alternative. There's just multiple curls. You can come in and work during our open hours. And another part of the center, we have a creativity corner. So if you need to de-stress or need a collaborative place to work with, you know, your classmates on a project, we have students come in and, you know, be writing things on the whiteboard or maybe just playing with the Rubik's Cube to kind of de-stress in between classes. And then we also offer on-demand workshops, which are videos on our website and tools and resources. So the things that I shared today and that Dr. Calhoun shared today, those are all available on our website, as well as a plethora of other topics related to just being a college student and your academic career, but then also your wellness as a student.
Okay, so a lot of what you may notice that we talked about time management, we talked about study skills, stress management. All of this falls under the umbrella of academic coaching. And so you can see from the photo, we have time management, balance, test taking, study skills, motivation, connecting with other campus resources, organization, and goal setting. And so by working on all of these areas, or maybe just a few, that can lead towards success. So within drop-in hours, and we also do offer weekly coaching, those all fall under the umbrella of academic coaching, as Nicolette just greatly explained all the stuff that we do. So just keeping that in mind. And then this is just a visual of some of the stuff we have on our website. I'm going to put our website in the chat. And I'll also put our tools and resources link in the chat as well. So all of those topics have, if you click on the title, they have various various handouts that can be downloaded in either PDF form or Word document. If you come into our office, we have binders with a lot of these printed. We also have a touch screen that has access to our website, so we can print handouts on demand. With that, not just the tools and resources, we also offer a link to various apps. We know people like to have phone apps on their computer. And so we go through and do vet them. And so, you know, you can always read our ongoing list, as sometimes the apps get a little too expensive and we're like, not worth it. So this app gets curated every semester, but things on time management, organization, reading skills, things like that. And then, as we've mentioned, we're located in the student union. We're open from 9:30 to 5. But we do know a lot of folks study on the weekends, study after hours. So we have a growing list of on-demand workshops. I think we have over probably over 50 at this point on various topics. And so the QR code on the screen will get you to our tools and resources website. But if you download any of our handouts and they have a corresponding video, they will have a QR code that will link directly to that on-demand workshop. So you can have that. And then of course, campus resources and other video tutorials as well. And so if you are wanting more assistance, come into workshops, come into drop-ins, but let's say you're studying at night and you want help on building a semester calendar or building a weekly calendar, we have a few videos that you can watch that walk you through that process as well. So in person, great. On demand, great as well. I think that's most of all that we prepared. So we'll leave any additional time for any questions folks have. And then if anyone wants to contact us, they can just reach out to Kortschak Center at usc.edu. That's our front desk. And we'll be happy to link up with you or give you any resources that you could want. So opening it up to the room, any questions that folks still have?
And if folks want to post questions into the chat or use the Q&A, that is totally appropriate in case you don't want to come off mute or come on camera. And while people are formulating the questions, I just want to say thank you to both of you. This is such a great resource. I think so timely as we are unfortunately coming to a more heightened peak time in the academic calendar where projects, assignments, exams are coming due. Spring break is right around the corner. But that just means I think that a lot of work and kind of juggling a lot of things to try to get to that spring break, and then of course coming back from and making sure that we didn't undo all of the great work that was done prior to. Um, I guess one of the resources I know you shared that I personally really value is that semester calendar, to have like on one sheet of paper an ability to kind of foresee everything that's happening. Could you share some of the other resources that I think are most often either celebrated or sought after, that why, what is it that people come to Kortschak for most often? Maybe that's the question I'm asking.
Well, definitely time management. So we always say that no matter what people come into us for, 99% of the time, it always goes back to time management. So if a student comes in and says, I really just need help, I never have time to get through my reading for class, that's actually a time management issue, not a reading issue. Same thing. I'm not sleeping enough. I'm really tired all the time. Again, it goes back to time management organization. So I know Nicolette just put our semester calendar into the chat, which is super helpful. And I would say with that, just time management stuff. So having just a calendar where you plan out when you're in class, when you have work, when you have to be somewhere, I think is really helpful. And then I think too, one we use a lot is called an action plan. It doesn't look all that exciting because it's just different boxes, but I think it's really helpful to have people plan out, breaking down day by day, what they have to do in a class and when they're going to complete it. That really gets down into that, the organization side of stuff, not just making a to-do list and going through the to-do list and starting at the top, of really planning out when you have time to do it, when it'll happen. But Nicolette, what other handouts do you think we should spotlight?
Yeah, I'm gonna put one in the chat right now. It's the procrastination elimination strategies. I think like we mentioned a lot of strategies and resources like specific handouts and things, but this one is really nice. There's a bunch of them on there. Some of them we mentioned, some of them we haven't, but I find that since everybody's an individual, the reasons they procrastinate or what they might use to procrastinate might be a little bit different from person to person. And so having this handout is really useful. Excuse me.
And we always say everyone procrastinates, so it's not a unique thing to you. And so helping to figure out not only how you procrastinate, but why. And so really breaking it down, a lot of procrastination just comes from being overwhelmed, not having enough time, believing that you can only do your best work if you're under pressure. And so working through the strategies of figuring out how it looks when you procrastinate, why you procrastinate, and then what to do instead is really helpful for folks.
Well, I'm not seeing any other questions either in the Q&A or chat. So with that, let me go ahead and stop recording and say thank you so much.